They were like the top team when I was a kid.
Yeah, he played there and then went to Green Bay.
Right, is everybody ready? All right, it's 6:30, and it's time to call to order the regular meeting of the East Bay Charter Township Zoning Board of Appeals. Prior to roll call, I'd like to welcome Mr. Taylor, our zoning administrator, and Paul Gonzalez to our board. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Roll call, please.
Edley.
Here.
Cook.
Here.
Gonzalez.
Here.
Stasinski.
Here.
Wolf, absent and excused. Hausman.
Here. Next, the agenda. I would like to review for conflict of interest at this time. If anybody on the board has a conflict of interest or a potential thereof, please let us know right now. All right, hearing none, next we'll move on to approval of the agenda, and I would like to recommend item C. We need to vote for a vice chair amongst the board. And if there's any discussion or support, I'd love to hear about that.
You're suggesting to add an item C under new business?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Move to accept the agenda of August 17th, 2021 of the Zoning Board of Appeals with the addition of item C under new business, election of vice chair.
Thank you. Do we have support?
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Do the roll call vote?
Yep.
Edley,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Stosinski,
Yes.
Hausman.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to approval of the minutes from June 8th, 2021. You'll notice the heading date is incorrect, and Leslie is aware of that, and she'll make that correction. And please take a few minutes to check out the minutes and let us know if you see any issues needing correction.
I'm good.
Okay. Would you care to make a motion?
Yeah, I can make a motion, like to make a motion to approve the minutes. I guess, what are the dates supposed to be?
June 8th.
June 8th, 2021, regular minutes, and the May 18th, 2021 site review minutes.
To support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I have to vote present because I was not.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Motion passed. And at this time, we'd like to invite any public comment on any items that are not on tonight's agenda. If anybody in the audience would like to speak to the board about anything that's not on tonight's agenda, here's your opportunity. All right, hearing none. And we'll move on to item 7, new business A, resolution regarding a timeline for a ZBA appeal. You'll notice in your meeting packet on page 11 of 30, we have the cover page, and let's, oh, I'm sorry?
So that's, I just wanted to provide a little background on that.
Yes,
So
by all means.
You'll see in Article 10 goes through all of the ZBA rules, regulations, kind of in the ordinance. And then Section 1004 specifies that each appeal that comes before the ZBA should follow the rule as set forth by the general rule. We couldn't find any documentation of what the general rule was in terms of that timeline, and so our attorney recommended that we set a timeline by resolution with the ZBA. This won't change the zoning ordinance, but this will just be a general rule to reference for when any resident or other party wants to appeal either an administrative decision by the zoning administrator or a decision by the planning commission. So we've had a few instances in the past couple months where planning commission decisions as well as zoning administrator decisions have been, there's been interest in appealing and questions about what the timeline is. So this is, the recommendation is to set the 30-day time limit. So if the appeal doesn't happen within 30 days, then that would be nullified. But the appeal needs to happen within 30 days of the ZBA, or the administrative decision taking place. That's the staff recommendation and working with our attorney.
Great, thank you very much.
One clarification real quick. The appeal has to be filed, or the appeal has to take place within 30 days?
Has to be filed within
Okay.
30 days.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And we would act on that within 30 days of it being filed.
Okay.
Okay, understood, thanks. So, any discussion?
seems logical that there should be a timeline. So,
You want a motion, Mr. Chairman?
Please.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve timeline for ZBA appeal.
I'll support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. And now we're on to new business item B, appeal request 4-21, Mr. Buchanan from 5454 Pumpernickel Road. This is for public hearing, discussion, and possible action. Everybody can see the previous appeal request in our packet. And Mr. Taylor, if you could give us some advice here, please. We have possible action. Could you kind of go through the scenarios for us?
Yes, sir, yep. I did visit the site, so the first variance request came before I arrived. So with the second one coming, I did go out to the site and met with Mr. Spradlin and Mr. Buchanan. They were very accommodating and very informative. They showed me the area in which they want a proposed building to go. And I want to clarify something. In your packet, it'll show a variance request of 70 feet from the river. It's actually 89. That was the second request, would be for that 89 foot, which still does not meet the 150-foot setback rule. And so they showed me the property, and one thing I'd like to note that struck me is that the photographs that you have are very misleading. And I was quite taken by that when I was out there. It is a very wet area. There's very limited space in what I could see to build on. And they gave me the reasons for which they want to put the building there, which was to store a piece of machinery that they would use for road maintenance or snow removal. I did network with my office after that visit, and an email was sent off to the DNR, Mr. Erdl, and asked if there was, in his opinion, based on what he could see, if there was any other area that he would recommend that could be built on the property. And he had written back, and you guys have this as well, that it was his suggestion that potentially the northeast corner, right under the 138th measurement, which is in one of the diagrams you have there, for the side setback distance on the east side of the parcel, he felt that that was a potential spot where that shed could be placed. In your package, you do have a couple letters of support for the variance. And then separate from the packet, you also have 3 letters against approving the variance. And I also have one verbal from a resident in the area who wished to remain anonymous. And that individual was vehemently against it as well, very, very adamantly against the variance being granted. So, again, in networking with my office, reviewing letters for and opposed, and speaking with those 2 gentlemen, I go back to the original decision, and where items number 6 and 7 in the basic conditions, in my humble opinion, still are not satisfied. And the request would be to deny the variance.
Okay. So we can opt to hear any new information from the applicant, if there is any, or do we just act on reopening the case, as it were?
If either of those 2 gentlemen had new information and wanted to speak, I would think that that would be appropriate.
All right. Would one of you like to address the board? Please let us know your name and address.
My name is Todd Spradlin. I am co-property owner of 5454. What I have asked Leslie to pass around there is an example of the building that we want to place. It's a very modest building. We're simply looking for something to store a $25,000 tractor that we need to maintain the private road that we share with 6 other residents on that road. We are happy to agree to any special conditions as to height or anything that would limit the approval to a building of the structure. But essentially, we're looking to plunk a building down in the middle of the driveway on the only square piece of land that we have to build. A couple of our neighbors do support it. I believe we're missing one letter of approval from Dr. Cure, I believe that came through email. But that particular area that we do use is kind of at the head of the road. So the neighbors do use that area to a pull aside, so to speak, to allow opposing traffic to come in. Single lane dirt road through a swamp, tons of maintenance on it. But that's the summary of the request. We're simply looking for some place to store our equipment, just like everybody else has. We are the only property on Pumpernickel Road that does not have an accessory building. In fact, 4 of the 9 properties have ginormous pole barns. Some of them we affectionately call the Garage Mahal. They're so big that they've required variances. So we've got a very basic request. We're not talking about a pickleball court, you know. We just need some place to store our equipment under cover, and we believe we have the right to do that just like everybody else.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we need to determine if we made any basic errors, if we feel we,
Are you going to do a public hearing?
we would definitely need to, but we have to get, I believe, to the point of whether that's appropriate or not.
You have to have one.
What's that?
You have to have a public hearing.
Of course, of course. We're trying to determine, do we need to do that? Did we make a mistake the first time around? We do have Mr. Taylor's advice that basic conditions number 6 and 7 are not met.
May I speak to that?
You may.
The basic condition 6 is kind of confusing to me as a created need. I think there's a very much a distinction between a created need and a typical need. Again, we're not building a pickleball court. We're trying to store the same type of equipment that everybody else has that would be inherent of living in that particular area. So I guess the concern that I have is that created need and how that's applied is that it's allowing the zoning board to say a 2-car garage is enough storage for you, but not everybody else. Even though it's very typical, again, there's 25 homes on Brown Bridge Road that have multiple accessory buildings or large pole barns. It's very unsettling to think that the zoning board can say that a 2-car garage is enough for this property, even though it's not for everybody else.
Thank you. I can give you a little bit of history. I was on the board back before that home was permitted, and the applicant at that time said the 2-car garage would meet all of their future expected needs. That was, as I recall, a big part of that discussion. So I know times change also. So that's what we need to discuss amongst the board.
Sure. The person that built the house, it was the second property for him. He lived downstate and then very rarely visited. We are, in fact, the first full-time residents in that dwelling.
Okay. Did you have anything else you wish to bring before the board currently?
Unless you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, we may call on you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll open this up to the board for discussion.
Well, the only thing that concerns me is that, yeah, because I don't think we can approve something if it, just based on 6, if it is self-created, that's kind of a big one to me. But this is a little side note. Why is East Bay Township 150 feet, Garfield Township is 50, and the city is 0, essentially? Anyone know that answer? Does anyone know that?
Because
I'm curious, it has nothing to do with this, but I want to know
We
this.
adopted the Natural Rivers
Okay.
Act, and Garfield did not.
Oh,
Say that
you
again?
didn't tell me that at Garfield.
Say that again?
We adopted
Yeah.
the Natural Rivers Act.
Okay.
Part of our
The
ordinance.
state designates where the natural river designations are.
And you could be more than 150 feet, can't you be up to 400 or something
Yeah.
like that, have a setback of 400
Yeah,
feet?
there's different zones.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Okay, that clears
And
things
I
up.
just wanted to make one quick clarification for the board. This variance request is different from what was previously reviewed at the February meetings because they're asking for slightly less. So we did notice it for public hearing. And so just wanted to reiterate that we need to make sure we do have a public hearing because it was noticed in the paper and mailed out to residences and stuff.
Okay, thank you.
So
So, please.
as one of your newer members, I guess I'm a little bit confused as to what is a self-created condition. I'm not sure how to say it, but I mean, the person that built the house obviously wasn't using it for the same purposes, but we all know at any time ownership changes, needs change. When you're living on a private road in northern Michigan, obviously there is a need to be able to maintain your, premises and part of the road. So I guess I'm trying to decide, what's the self-created part? Is it the fact that he bought a property that didn't have one, knowing it didn't have one? Or, because the self-created part to me is confusing. The road's private. I guess they were aware of that when they bought it. But yeah, I'm kind of trying, and then I think, well, with the two-car garage being, basically we're saying, well, that's adequate storage for equipment. So I guess I would like more explanation on the self-created part.
Well, my interpretation, I think, is the same as yours, is that these gentlemen purchased the home knowing the layout of the land, knowing the private road, knowing the existing structure. And now that they see a need for that other building, doesn't negate standing ordinance just because they have a want.
Right.
And to clarify on that just a little, I believe that they did a very good job of showing me in what they believe to be a need for them. But as networking in my office, again, there is an existing garage, and these gentlemen knew of the conditions of the property, the home, the storage when they bought it, as well as the road. No surprises popped up that's been brought to our attention that would
Right.
warrant this
Right.
needed variance.
Gotcha. Okay, understood.
Is this, but it says there's a small alternative that would.
Right.
Yeah, so would this, the garage that you showed us, or storage building, I should say, would that fit on that small,
It would not meet the 150-foot setback.
even in a small alternative, though? The request variance is self-created since a small alternative that conforms with the ordinance is possible. So is there other place possible? That's what kind of confused me. You see my point?
DNR site.
Yeah.
The letter the correspondence we got back from the DNR
Oh, yeah, I haven't read that.
that you have,
Yeah.
or that would be separate from the packet,
Okay,
they recommended, at least in his opinion, that in that northeast corner,
was okay.
that there was a spot that they felt it could be built in.
Okay. Would that fit your tractor?
And I apologize, I just got the
Yeah.
information.
Yeah, because that could solve everything.
But I don't know where they're referencing
Yeah.
anything on the northeast corner of the property. Anything to go in anywhere except for where we are proposing would require considerable infill.
Oh,
Not only are we not likely to get that approved through wetlands, we wouldn't want to do that.
okay.
That we're very conscientious about how we treat the land.
Sure.
But I just don't see where in the northeast corner of the property.
Mr. Taylor, that proposed spot would be conforming to the 150-foot setback, would it not?
It would be.
Okay,
yes.
thank you. And have you pursued that via Eagle or DEQ?
That wouldn't even be an option for us. The drop-off from the road at that point is about 6 feet. So we wouldn't even consider that an option even if it were approved. It's wet. I promise you, I planted 30 trees out there this spring. The amount of runoff that that particular area gets, because it is, at the base of Ranch Rudolph Road, we've got the big hill. That area handles the, tons of runoff and drainage. That's, anybody that looked physically looked at the property would not agree that that's an appropriate alternative.
Okay, thank you. Oh, board discussion?
So I think I took a brief hiatus off of the board, and I was not part of this original meeting. So can someone kind of give me a summary of what has changed from the original variance request into this appeal? Was there a change?
Mr. Taylor, please.
And I'll defer to Claire if I'm wrong here, but as I understand it, the only difference would be an 89-foot distance from the river rather than the proposed 70 initially.
Okay.
The board's recommendation under the previous application was to move it as far north as we possibly could, which we've done based on the easement setback for that particular area. Our previous application had the building setback further from the road. The previous recommendation was to move it further north, as far north as we possibly could, which we've done based on the setback of the road. It's a very shallow portion of the property, and there is an easement for all the other properties 30 feet wide. So we've changed the layout of the building. It was proposed much longer and narrower, so we've shortened it and squatted it up to make it fit just like a postage stamp in that particular area.
Regarding further board discussion, the place that I'm stuck is trying to determine if any error was made on the board's part on the original appeal request. And I agree with Mr. Taylor that basic conditions 6 and 7, looking strictly at our ordinance, are not satisfied. If anybody else has other opinions or input, I'd be very happy to listen to your points of view.
Just clarification, I'm assuming with the little site plan that we've got in the packet, that the actual existing house was also granted a variance as well, right? Okay. Okay, so it's further away than the proposed variance request for the purpose of this meeting, but is still inside that 150-foot setback.
Correct.
The existing house is, yeah, okay.
Of course, please. Let us know your name and address.
Open the public hearing.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Yes, please.
My name is Rick Stein, I'm an adjacent property owner. I live at Arbor Hills Drive. I've had a cottage adjacent to that for in excess of 4 years. To answer your question, Matt, that particular piece of property was not buildable, but there was some litigation that the township faced by letting someone purchase a piece of property that was not buildable. So he got actually 2 variances and an opportunity to fill wetlands to build that house. That house shouldn't be there, in my opinion. These 2 guys are the nicest neighbors I could ever have. They're wonderful people. I think that when East Bay Township signed on to the Natural River Act 1970 with Blair and Union Township to protect the scenic value of the river, everybody kind of agreed to that, and they were going to protect that. And my concern is if we grant 1 variance, we're going to get a request for a lot more. It's going to be very hard to turn them down in this township or the other 2. And then we're going to create an issue. I think the best solution for these gentlemen, if they can, is to lease a piece of property next adjacent to them on one of their neighbors' properties and build a pole building. That can be done. And it can have the proper setback. There are lots of pole buildings out there. I've got a storage building. Mine's 150 foot back, and I bought it after we did that. And to answer Carl's question, my understanding of the Natural River Act, we're in a scenic Natural River Act,
Okay.
everything east of Garfield, where it's 150 feet. And if you don't have 200 feet of frontage, it's 400 feet.
Okay, that, yeah, I did read about 400 feet today, okay. Well,
So
thanks.
there is variances in there, and
Okay.
I'd like to see these guys have a building. My biggest concern is you're going to open up the door for a lot of variances, and then it's going to create a problem down the river.
Thank you. All right, so procedurally, Mr. Taylor, do we, yes, just a minute, please. Procedurally, sir, do we need to decide if we're going to have a public hearing and reconsider this?
I would defer to my constituents on that.
It was a noticed meeting for a public hearing. We have to have a public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Therefore, we've heard from the applicant, at least partially. We've heard from one member of the public, and yes, sir, if you'd like to come up, please, and tell us who you are, we'd love to hear what you have to say.
Good evening. My name's Richard Davis. I own the property adjacent to Mr. Stein, directly across from the river. And I, too, am concerned with opening the floodgates. For example, I have 500 feet on the river. I'm not allowed to build. I might just want to change that. I back up to the quiet area. Well, it opens up a whole can of worms. That's just across the river and down the river. So all of a sudden, everybody, has a want or a need. And a lot of times it's based on financial, can I afford a pole building or a frame structure? So I've been there since 1981. I have paid the dues and, every permit, everything goes according to. And I learned that lesson in 1980 when I started building. And so you see the areas change, but rules are rules. And so I, for one, if that's passed, and I have nothing against the neighborhood, I will file a variance. I want to build on the river. I own on the river, but I live up the river because I can't build on that. Well, gosh, I'll go up and I'll put a holding tank in it, I'll put all the things in there. Mr. Stein said it very easily. The house should never been built. So it's been building on these variances for years, and for you guys, how much time, you know, on the board do we take up on just variances? So, you know, this is something that is gonna open up a world of, I wanna move over here, I wanna put a house up, I'd like to put a bridge. You know, so on and on and on. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other members of the audience who would like to speak? Yes, sir?
My name is Bob Summers. I've lived on the river for about 30-something years now. Well, to start with, I say we should stick with a 150-foot setback. That was put together years ago by some very good minds who could see the future, what was really happening to destroy the area, which I moved up here for at that time, but learned to live with it. And I think it's a very slippery slope to start varying that 150 foot. And look at all of the effort and money which has been put into creating the trails around, removal of the dam. We're creating this river back into a beautiful thing. It always was beautiful, but it's getting better. Most of the people that use the river, either canoeing it, paddling it, fly fishing it, which is my game, we don't want to look at any more houses or anything along it. We'd rather look at the trees and the real nature. And the people that come up north to see Traverse City, most of them, if they use the river, they want to look at nature, the trees and all of that stuff, not buildings. So I would say it's almost ridiculous to think that we're going to ignore the 150 foot, because that was put together by some very good minds. That's what I'd like to see. Stick with the 150.
Thank you, sir. Any other members of the public who would like to speak? All right, one more.
Yeah. I absolutely respect the natural view of the river. In fact, we've spent lots of money planting trees and ensuring that there's a succession of planting for future generations of a screened view. The proposed site would absolutely, the proposed building would absolutely not be visible from the river in any way, shape, or form.
All right, thank you. All right, any other members? Yes, ma'am, please.
I live next to these folks over here, and I think that the river...
Could you please tell us?
My name's Elizabeth Patterson,
Thank you.
and aesthetically, the river needs to be free of buildings. Nobody wants to come canoeing down and seeing this particular house and that particular house. And it is a beautiful river. I've only lived up here 6 years, and it's a wonderful place. And I would hate to see that variance changed. It needs to be 150 feet. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? All right, hearing none, we'll close the public input portion of the hearing, and we'll open this up to the board for discussion and possible action. What's your pleasure?
I think we should act on it today, but I don't know if that's your question or not, but I already kind of said my feelings about it.
Okay.
Which, I don't know, I think a few others are gonna have that feeling, but.
Yeah, after listening to the entire presentation, what's your view currently?
I would have to, well, if I'm gonna make a motion, I'd motion to deny based on basic condition 6, and I have nothing wrong with the storage shed, it's actually very aesthetically pleasing, but you gotta be careful of judicial scrutiny, and this is inviting it. This is like the second tricky one in a row, quite frankly, but So that's my feelings, but you guys, if you guys can have your own opinion. I don't, disagreement's good sometimes.
Was that a motion?
Oh, do you guys wanted a motion? Well, let's let
Do we
someone
want
else
some
give
more
it their opinion,
discussion
'cause
here?
there might be 4 other people that disagree with me wholeheartedly, so.
I'm actually satisfied. My only question was about, because I am new, about the, created, and that has been answered, so I thought that Mr. Stein's input was very helpful as well, knowing some background on the property and knowing that it originally was created because of variances. So that, to me, adds a whole new light to it, and it's a property that, if it should have never been built on, now we're acting on a new variance again, and where do we stop? Where does that get cut off?
Thank you. Mr. Cook?
I mean, I'll just, sometimes I talk a little bit too much, but I'll keep that going tonight. I'll say just a couple of things. Listening to the applicant, I can appreciate the need for a building to keep your equipment in. But, looking through the definition of this particular district, just in the name of itself, being called a scenic river district, the intent there is abundantly clear, that it's there to protect the integrity of the scenery within that river district. And I would say that as that decision was made, probably before I was born, it sounds like in the 70s, that, it's there to be here for me. I mean, like I said, I wasn't even born then. I've spent a considerable amount of time on the river myself, since I've lived here in the Traverse City area in East Bay Township, and it's a beautiful place. I don't doubt that there's a pretty good chance that the structure would not be visible from the river, but at the end of the day, this is a situation where I feel like it's something that should be sacred. It was obviously sacred to the people that made the decision to put it in this scenic river district at the time. We need, with the push for changes in the township at a rapid pace and development in some other places that, are not sacred, we probably need to respect that. As far as the condition goes, number 6, related to being self-created, I think there are probably a few alternatives for having this structure built on this property that could satisfy the need, although they're not ideal to the applicant, would indeed resolve their issue with their storage. So for that reason, I think I'm satisfied. So that's my piece.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez?
Just looking at the schematic of the layout and seeing that the house is 116 feet, I think, from the, indicates to me that somewhere way back when, the variance was granted and we start down the slippery slope. I too appreciate the position of needing a place to store your equipment. But at the same time, I think that we do need to live by the rules. And this East Bay signed on to the Natural River agreement, and I think we need to abide by that. And I'm sorry that I don't think I can't approve this. I'm sorry about that, but at this point, I think we need to stick with trying to keep the river in the pristine condition that we hope to.
Thank you. All right, any further board discussion? All right, we'll entertain a motion if somebody would like to make it.
Yeah, I'll make it. I'll make a motion to deny appeal request 421, as it doesn't meet all the basic conditions.
Second.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? All right, a roll call vote, please. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Remind you the importance of the staff findings of fact that we
Oh.
put together just in case the.
Absolutely.
needs to be included.
They're part of the record, and I would, very specifically state that we're acting on them at this time as well.
Yeah, in the motion.
Carl, could you add that to your motion, please, if
Sure.
you're willing?
You want me to talk about it, that we, as part of the denial, we
Relying on staff
rely on
comment?
staff comments? Yeah, sure.
Subject to staff findings of fact.
Staff findings of fact.
Okay,
That's
thank
my
you.
motion.
All right.
A little addendum to it.
We still have your support? Okay, any further discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Cook,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Edley,
Yes.
Stravinsky,
Yes.
Hausman.
Yes. I'm sorry, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Motion denied. Thank you very much.
You missed a lot of fun in the 70s, man.
All right, let's move on to item
Remember it, you
C.
didn't have fun.
Right?
Dave were in college, or Dave was in college in the 70s, he had fun.
Item C, we'd like to find a vice chairperson for the zoning board of appeals. Leslie, when would this vice chairpersonship expire?
I'd have to look to see when.
When was mine,
previous
when
vice
does,
chair.
that was me.
And I would think that would be in 20.
I was the
Yeah.
previous one, yeah, Ted and Tracy Bartlett. You guys want to, you guys can have it, I don't really
That's what I
care.
had was Tracy.
No, when she,
Well, then you can remain.
well, okay, well, that's, unless
Absolutely.
someone else wants to do it, it's
Okay,
fine
so
with
we
me.
don't even have to vote.
Yeah, can you just check the records and
Yeah.
make sure it supports Carl's position?
Ted Henschel, well, you guys could do it too, I mean,
No?
I don't really,
Okay.
You know.
I'll look, but if he says that, I believe him.
well, it was Ted and, but no, and I didn't really want it then. I'm just joking. I know, you can, if someone else want to do it, feel free. I did for,
I'll have to look and see, okay?
yeah.
And I can put it on the next meeting.
All right.
Yeah, if you're currently the vice chair,
Yeah, but it might have been last year, I think, because it was our first meeting.
It goes your whole term, unless they vote.
Oh, I didn't
for
know
every
that.
year.
I thought it was just a year. Yeah, ours is every
Right,
year.
unless they vote different every year is what I
And
say.
it could be close to a year, quite frankly.
so
Just have to
let's check it out, and
Yeah.
if we need to act, we will.
July.
It could have been it. Did we have were we in the, that don't matter.
I'll check last July's meeting
All right.
minutes.
Yep, and,
That'll be yay.
Dave, why don't you be chairman and vice chairman?
no, thank you. I have other plans, thank you.
Yeah, I do too.
All right. Looks like reports. Could we hear about the town board meeting, please?
Yeah, so had a few things transpire since the last time that we met. Here, most recently, the board voted to support the 3-mile TART trail extension. So there was a little bit of discussion about that. It looks like they have got some agreement with the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy on the new property that they have recently acquired and plan to build their headquarters, their office at, to run the TART trail along the east side of the property. Looks like there's still quite a bit of due diligence and design that has to go into that. But looks like that's promising. So it'll be moved up to up the 3-mile corridor to Hammond Road.
Okay. Any estimates on cost so far?
They had some in the proposal. I want to say, don't quote me on it, but I want to say it was in the neighborhood of a few $1 million.
Okay.
But the design piece will start now, and it looked like, I can't remember the exact timeline, but I think it was, a couple of years down the road to get easements and design completed and approvals through potentially wetlands. So that's, it's going to be some years down the road, but, it's moving now, so it's kind of some good news for everybody. The hot topic over the past couple of months in the township related to a rezoning request at Elmbrook Golf Course. It did pass at actually, it was a little over a week ago, last Monday, conditional rezoning of Elmbrook Golf Course. So that will be effective, I believe, November 1st of 2022, and they've got, I want to say, 3 years until 2025 to complete significant construction. Otherwise, it reverts back to the previous zoning. Any questions on it?
It sounded like the neighbors are relatively happy with the agreement.
Yeah, I think there was initially a lot of opposition. Sounds like a group got together and hired legal counsel and did some, maybe some negotiations with the developer, and they resulted in at a position where they weren't opposed.
Great.
So they were kind of quiet on the topic at that point. But yeah, so it made it through, I think, 2 planning commission meetings before they made a recommendation after they got through some of their changes to the conditions they were offering with the rezoning.
Okay.
We also voted at the last board meeting last week to, it was just a general vote of support for Housing North. Housing North is a not-for-profit organization that's really pushing to diversify housing stock here in Northwest Michigan and address, some of the housing needs here. They have some presentations, a nice website, some information on what they think the greater Grand Traverse County area and beyond is going to look like from a housing demand standpoint through 2025. So they gave us a little bit of a presentation at the last meeting. And we also have had numerous discussions over the past couple of months involving East Bay Ambulance, and there was some conversations about offering contract ambulance services to Acme Township. We've talked about it, I believe, at 4 meetings total so far, including a special meeting that was called August 3rd of this month to review budgets and preliminary financials. There was quite a bit of discussion, but ultimately that the board declined to proceed offering that contract service to Acme Township.
Okay.
That's about the update since our last meeting.
Great, a full slate, thank you. Could we have a report from the planner zoning administrator, please? Yes, please.
Okay, so the only item that I just wanted to highlight, you'll see there's a flyer on your desk. There's a training on September 28th. It's risk management. So we got a grant from the MTA Grand Traverse County chapter, as well as the MTA PAR plan that focuses on risk mitigation. So this training is going to be offered to all Grand Traverse County ZBA members, elected officials, planning commissioners. We're really promoting attendance at this. It's going to be here at the East Bay Township Hall. That evening, we have a really great trainer that's been in the field of planning for, I think, 40-plus years. So I would definitely encourage, if you guys are available, to attend that training.
Is distance participation an option?
Is what?
Zoom or something
You know
similar?
what? I'm going to see if we might be able to get it recorded, and so that you can watch it in the future. But I think being there in person would be great. And the focus is on risk mitigation, avoiding, the risk of litigation. And that's something that communities across Michigan are facing more and more often. And East Bay Township, although we're not actively, under litigation right now, we've been dealing with a number of different cases. So I think it's great training opportunity for all the boards and commissions.
Great, thank you. Anything from you, Leslie?
No, I like my new position.
Okay, congratulations.
And I like my new zoning administrator.
Right?
Don't
And-
tell him that, though.
Anything further, Mr. Taylor?
I don't think so, sir, no.
All right, thank you all. And at this point, we have an opportunity for the public to comment on any topics at all. So please let us know if you wish. Hearing none, we are adjourned.